Captain Tae-ho Kim stood in the center of the great crystal hall, feeling very small. The Galactic Council chamber stretched out before him like a giant dome made of pure light. Hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs that moved through the air without any sound. Some looked like giant insects with too many eyes. Others were just balls of glowing energy that pulsed different colors when they talked. The strangest ones looked like walking trees with faces made of bark and leaves. Tae-ho wore his best Earth uniform, but it felt cheap and simple next to all the shining alien technology around him. His translation device was just a small box clipped to his collar. The aliens had devices that seemed to work without any visible parts at all. They could speak directly into each other's minds, or so it appeared to him. "So this is what humans look like," said High Admiral Kresh from his floating throne. The Draconian leader was 12 feet tall with dark green scales that seemed to shift color in the light. His eyes were bright yellow with black slits down the middle like a snake. When he smiled, Tae-ho could see rows of sharp white teeth. How primitive. The other council members began to laugh. It was not a pleasant sound. The insect-like creatures made clicking noises with their mouths. The energy beings flashed bright red and orange. Even the tree people rustled their leaves in what Tae-ho guessed was their way of laughing. "Your species still burns dead plants and animals for energy," said one of the Vorthon delegates. Its voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once, like hearing someone speak inside a cave. "Your fastest ships move slower than our cargo vessels. You still use metal projectiles as weapons." More laughter filled the chamber. Tae-ho felt his face grow hot, but he kept his expression calm. He had expected this. Earth's leaders had warned him that first contact would not be easy. Humans were new to space travel compared to these ancient civilizations. Some of the aliens in this room had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. Admiral Kresh leaned forward in his chair, looking down at Tae-ho like a cat watching a mouse. "Tell me, little human, what does your planet have to offer the galactic community? What can you possibly give us that we don't already have?" Tae-ho cleared his throat. He had practiced this speech many times during the long journey from Earth. "We offer our knowledge, our culture, and our willingness to learn. We may be new to space, but humans have always been good at solving problems. We adapt quickly to new situations." "Adapt?" Admiral Kresh laughed so hard that some of the other aliens moved their chairs away from him. "Your entire species lives on one small planet around a common yellow star. You have barely left your own solar system. What could you possibly know about adaptation?" A Zephyrian delegate clicked its mandibles together rapidly. "Perhaps they could serve as workers in the outer colonies," it suggested. "Their small size might be useful for maintenance tasks in tight spaces." "Oh yes," agreed another voice from somewhere in the chamber. "They could clean our ships or tend our gardens. Surely that is the best use for such a primitive species." The laughter grew louder. Tae-ho watched as these powerful beings discussed his entire species like they were talking about pets or tools. He thought about his wife and children back on Earth, waiting for news of how first contact had gone. He thought about all the scientists and engineers who had worked so hard to build the ship that brought him here. They deserve better than this. "Your technology is thousands of years behind ours," Admiral Kresh continued. "You still use chemical rockets to escape your planet's gravity. We mastered anti-gravity technology before your species learned to make metal. Your computers are so slow they might as well be powered by hamsters running on wheels." "What about their weapons?" asked one of the energy beings. "Surely they have developed some interesting ways to fight." "Weapons?" Admiral Kresh brought up a holographic display that showed images of Earth's military equipment. "Look at this. They shoot small pieces of metal at each other. They use explosives that barely scratch the surface of a planet. Their most powerful weapons are crude nuclear devices that contaminate everything around them. It's like watching children play with sticks and stones." The display showed Earth's newest battleship, the Soul's Pride, which had brought Tae-ho to this meeting. Next to images of Draconian warships, it looked like a toy boat, floating next to an aircraft carrier. The alien ships were smooth and graceful, covered in glowing energy shields that bent light around them. Earth's ship was just metal plates welded together with big guns bolted on the outside. "Even their largest military vessel is smaller than our shuttlecraft," noted a tall, thin alien with blue skin and 4 arms. "And I believe those are actually projectile weapons mounted on the hull. How quaint." "They don't even have proper energy shields," added another voice. "Just thick metal armor like something from the Stone Age." Tae-ho listened to it all without speaking. He took careful notes on a simple tablet computer, recording everything he heard.
The aliens seemed to think this was funny too.
They pointed at his primitive device and whispered among themselves. "Look, he's writing things down by hand," one of them said. "Don't they have neural recording devices?" "Apparently not," replied another. "I heard they still use their eyes to see and their ears to hear. Just like wild animals." "Fascinating," said the Altarian representative, a graceful being that looked almost human except for silver skin and completely black eyes. "I've studied many primitive species, but I've never seen one so perfectly preserved in such an early stage of development." Admiral Kresh raised one clawed hand, and the chamber fell silent. "Captain Kim," he said, making Taeho's name sound like something unpleasant, "your application to join the Galactic Council has been reviewed. The decision is unanimous." Taeho straightened his shoulders. "And?" "Denied," Admiral Kresh said with obvious pleasure. "Your species is not ready for galactic civilization. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have developed proper technology and learned some manners, you may apply again. However," the Admiral continued, "we are not without mercy. The Draconian Empire will establish protection zones around your solar system. We will make sure no hostile forces threaten your primitive world while you slowly develop into something more useful." The other aliens nodded in agreement. Taeho understood what this really meant. Earth was being claimed as Draconian property. They were not offering protection. They were announcing conquest. What does Earth bring to the galactic community? Taeho repeated the question that had been asked earlier. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every alien he could see. "We bring ourselves and the will to survive." The aliens laughed again, but Taeho thought some of them looked a little less certain than before. He turned and walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. "Enjoy your primitive little world while you can, human," Admiral Kresh called after him. "We'll be in touch soon." As the great doors closed behind him, Taeho activated the recording device hidden in his uniform. Everything the aliens had said was now stored in Earth's databases. Every laugh, every insult, every detail about their technology and attitudes. His mission was complete. 3 months after Captain Kim's return to Earth, the long-range sensors on Mars Colony picked up something that made Governor Hyjin Park's blood run cold. 200 ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, and they were definitely not human. "How big are they?" she asked her chief technician, Dongwu, who was staring at his screen with wide eyes. "The smallest ones are twice the size of our largest battleship," he said quietly. "The biggest one, Governor? It's almost as long as the colony itself." Hyjin moved to the observation window and looked out at the red Martian landscape. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of human eyes, an alien fleet was coming toward them. She thought about the 2 million people living in the domed cities scattered across Mars. They had come here to build a new life, to push the boundaries of human exploration. Now they might all die because their species was too primitive to be left alone. The communication system crackled to life. "This is Admiral Kresh of the Draconian Empire, speaking to the primitive humans of the Sol system." His voice was as cold as space itself. "You will surrender immediately and accept our protection. You have 72 hours to comply. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." The message repeated 3 times, then cut off. Hyjin looked around at her staff. They all had the same expression of fear and determination that she felt in her own heart. "Get me Earth Command," she said. On Earth, President Changwu Li sat in the Emergency Command Center deep beneath the capital city. The room was filled with screens showing everything humanity knew about the approaching threat. Admiral So Young-han, the head of Earth's Space Force, stood beside a large display showing the positions of every human ship in the solar system. 50 ships, Admiral Han said grimly. "That's our entire military force. Most of them are converted cargo vessels with missile pods and railguns bolted on. We have exactly 0 ships that were built from scratch as warships." "What about our newest ships?" asked President Lee. "The best we have is the Sol's Pride, and it's still in dock getting repairs from the journey to meet the Galactic Council. Our newest destroyer, the Busan, has weapons that might scratch the paint on one of their ships." "Maybe." Dr. Jaemin Cho cleared his throat from the back of the room. He was a small, quiet man who ran Earth's theoretical physics division. Most people forgot he was there until he had something important to say. "Mr. President, I've been studying the data Captain Kim brought back from his meeting with the Council. The Draconians have incredible technology, but it all works together in very specific ways. President Lee turned to look at him. Explain. Their ships are connected by quantum communication networks. Every system talks to every other system. Their weapons, shields, engines, even their life support. It's all controlled by central computer systems that coordinate everything perfectly. That sounds like an advantage, Admiral Han said. It is, Dr. Cho agreed. But it's also a weakness. When you connect everything together, a problem in one area can spread everywhere else. It's like building a house of cards. Very impressive when it works, but if you remove the wrong card, the whole thing falls down, President Lee finished. What are you suggesting? I'm not sure yet, but I think we need to stop trying to fight them the way they expect us to fight. They have better ships, better weapons, better everything, but they also think they understand us completely. Meanwhile, aboard the Draconian flagship Dominus Rex, Admiral Kresh was reviewing intelligence reports about human military capabilities. His tactical officer, Vexra, had compiled a detailed analysis of every human weapon and ship. Their largest guns fire metal projectiles at barely 3% of light speed, Vexra reported. Our shields can stop objects moving 10 times faster than that. Their missiles carry chemical explosives that would barely dent our hull armor. What about their numbers? Admiral Kresh asked. 50 military vessels total. We have 4 times that number, and each of our ships is individually superior to anything they can build. This will not be a battle, Admiral. It will be a brief demonstration of power. Admiral Kresh smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Good, I want them to see how hopeless resistance would be. Perhaps some of them will be smart enough to surrender without forcing us to destroy them all. The Draconian fleet began moving deeper into the solar system. Their ships were beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hulls were smooth black metal that seemed to absorb light, covered with glowing lines that pulsed like heartbeats. Energy shields shimmered around each vessel like soap bubbles made of pure force. Back on Earth, the Emergency Council was still meeting. Dr. Cho had been joined by Dr. Sun-Mi Yoon, who specialized in computer systems, and Dr. Kyung-Ho Nam, who understood communication networks better than almost anyone else on Earth. The Draconians use quantum entanglement for their ship-to-ship communication, Dr. Yoon explained. It's faster than light, completely secure, and allows perfect coordination between all their vessels. But, Dr. Nam added, quantum systems are very sensitive. If you could introduce the right kind of interference, you could disrupt their coordination, President Lee said, beginning to understand. More than that, Dr. Cho said excitedly. If their systems are as integrated as Captain Kim's data suggests, we might be able to cause cascade failures. Make their own technology work against them. Admiral Han looked skeptical. That's a big if. And even if it works, we still have to get close enough to try it. Their sensors will detect our ships long before we can do anything. Maybe, Dr. Cho said. But they're looking for threats they understand. Military ships with big guns and thick armor. What if we gave them exactly what they expected to see? The room fell quiet as everyone considered this. You want to use our ships as decoys, President Lee said. Not just our ships, Dr. Cho replied. Everything. Every satellite, every space station, every cargo hauler and mining vessel in the system. The Draconians see them as harmless civilian craft. But what if they weren't? Dr. Yoon pulled up a display showing every human-made object in space. There were thousands of them. Communication satellites, orbital platforms, asteroid mining ships, research stations, even tourist shuttles. We could network them all together, she said slowly. Create our own quantum communication system using civilian hardware. The Draconians would never expect civilians to be part of a military operation. Because civilized species don't involve their civilians in warfare, Admiral Han realized. But humans aren't civilized by their standards. President Lee looked around the room at his advisors and military commanders. These people represented the best minds humanity had to offer, and they were talking about turning their entire civilization into a weapon. How long do we have? He asked. The Draconian fleet will reach Mars orbit in 68 hours, Admiral Han replied. If we're going to do this, we need to start now. Then we start now, President Lee said. Dr. Cho, you have complete authority to coordinate with anyone you need. Admiral Han, prepare our fleet for unconventional tactics, and somebody get me a direct line to every human settlement in the solar system. As the meeting broke up and people hurried to their tasks, President Lee remained in his chair, staring at the display showing the approaching alien fleet. In less than 3 days, humanity would face its first real test as a spacefaring species. They were about to find out what humans were really capable of when their backs were against the wall. The Draconians expected primitives with simple weapons and predictable tactics. Instead, they were about to encounter something that had never existed in the galaxy before. An entire species willing to turn every piece of technology they owned into a weapon, and every civilian into a soldier. The countdown had begun. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of the Dominus Rex, watching the primitive human solar system grow larger on his screens. In 12 hours, the ultimatum would expire. He expected either immediate surrender or a pathetic display of defiance from the humans, before they realized how hopeless their situation was. Admiral, his communications officer, Morthen, reported, "We're receiving a message from the human homeworld." "Put it through," Kresh said, settling back in his command chair. He expected to hear begging or desperate attempts at negotiation. Instead, a calm human voice filled the bridge. "This is President Changwu Li of Earth. We have considered your offer of surrender. We decline. Come and take it." The message was short, simple, and completely unexpected. Kresh felt his yellow eyes narrow. "That's it? No pleading? No attempts to bargain?" "That appears to be their complete response, Admiral," Morthen confirmed. "Foolish primitives," Kresh muttered. "Very well. Begin the advance. Target their military vessels first. We'll disable a few to show them how pointless resistance is, then accept their surrender." The Draconian fleet moved deeper into the system in perfect formation. Their sensors easily detected the human ships scattered throughout the area around Mars, Earth, and the asteroid belt. Exactly 50 vessels, just as their intelligence had predicted. Most of them appeared to be converted civilian craft with weapons bolted onto their hulls. What the Draconians didn't notice were the thousands of other objects floating throughout the solar system. Communication satellites, mining platforms, research stations, cargo haulers, and orbital habitats. To their advanced sensors, these looked like exactly what they were supposed to be: harmless civilian infrastructure. Captain Boram Shin stood on the bridge of the Earth battleship Incheon, watching her tactical display with grim satisfaction. The display showed not just her own ship, but hundreds of other vessels scattered throughout the solar system. Cargo ships that had been quietly modified with missile pods, mining vessels that now carried electronic warfare equipment, even tourist shuttles that had been converted into drone controllers. "Network status?" she asked her communications officer. "All nodes connected and responding, Captain. We have quantum links to over 3,000 platforms from Earth orbit all the way out to the Jupiter mining stations." Captain Shin nodded. For the past 60 hours, every human spacecraft, station, and satellite in the solar system had been linked together through a massive communication network. The Draconians were looking for a traditional fleet engagement between military vessels. Instead, they were about to face something that had never existed before in galactic history. An entire solar system turned into a single, coordinated weapon. Dr. Sun Mi-yoon watched from her converted research vessel, the Gyeongju, as streams of data flowed across her screens. She had spent weeks analyzing every piece of information Captain Kim had brought back about Draconian technology. Their ships were incredibly advanced, but they all used the same basic quantum frequency harmonics for their internal systems. "It's like they all came from the same factory," she muttered to her assistant. "Same communication protocols, same shield frequencies, same computer architectures. They've standardized everything. Is that bad for us?" her assistant asked. "It's perfect for us," Dr. Yoon replied. "When everything works the same way, one solution can affect everything at once." Aboard a converted asteroid mining ship hiding in the shadow of Ceres, Dr. Kyung-ho Nam was making final adjustments to his special cargo. The mining ship's holds were filled with thousands of small drones, each one no bigger than a basketball. They looked like simple mechanical devices, built from spare parts and civilian electronics. Each drone carried something that looked completely harmless to Draconian sensors, a small quantum transmitter designed for civilian communications. The Draconians' own technology was so advanced that they would ignore such primitive devices entirely. They had no way of knowing that these primitive transmitters had been carefully programmed to broadcast on very specific frequencies, the same frequencies that controlled Draconian ship systems. "Launch in 30 minutes, Dr. Nam announced to his team. "Remember, we get exactly one chance at this. If they detect the drones before they're in position, the whole plan fails. Captain Yan-Su Park crouched in the command center of her stealth frigate Ulsan, watching as her ship drifted silently through a cloud of metallic debris. For the past 2 days, human ships throughout the system had been scattering chaff, sensor decoys, and electromagnetic interference devices. The Draconians saw this as evidence of primitive technology and poor coordination. They had no idea that humans were using basic physics principles that their advanced sensors weren't designed to detect. Simple heat masking, radar absorption, and good old-fashioned camouflage. Enemy fleet approaching weapons range, her sensor officer reported. They're targeting the obvious military vessels first. Perfect, Captain Park replied. Let them see exactly what they expect to see. Commander Huan Young Lim sat in the command center aboard the Daejeon, Earth's most advanced command ship. His screen showed the positions of every human asset in the solar system. Not just the 50 military vessels the Draconians knew about, but the thousands of civilian craft that had been quietly converted into weapons platforms. Phase 1 is ready, he reported to Earth Command. All decoy ships are in position and broadcasting standard military signatures. Phase 2 assets are deployed and undetected. Phase 3 is standing by for execute command. President Lee's voice crackled through the communication system. You are authorized to proceed, Commander. Show them what humans are capable of. The Draconian fleet reached optimal firing range and began their attack. Brilliant beams of plasma energy lanced out toward the nearest human ships, expecting to see them disabled or destroyed by the demonstration of superior firepower. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams passed harmlessly through empty space. What? Admiral Kresh stood up from his command chair. Tactical report. Admiral, our sensors showed enemy vessels at those coordinates, but our weapons struck nothing. The ships, they weren't where we thought they were. Sensor ghosts, Vexra suggested. Primitive jamming, perhaps. Recalibrate and fire again. But as the Draconians adjusted their targeting systems, more impossible things began happening. Human ships started appearing on their sensors in places where nothing had been detected moments before. The 50 military vessels they had tracked suddenly became hundreds, then thousands. This is impossible, Admiral Kresh snarled. They don't have thousands of ships. Where are they coming from? What he didn't understand was that humans had been using the most basic principle of warfare, deception. The military vessels his sensors had been tracking were actually cargo containers filled with electronics, broadcasting fake signatures while drifting on predictable courses. The real human ships had been hiding in sensor shadows, behind debris clouds, and inside the signatures of seemingly harmless civilian craft. Admiral, we're detecting massive communications activity throughout the system, Morthen reported. The humans appear to be coordinating some kind of system-wide response. With what? Kresh demanded. They have 50 primitive ships against our 200 advanced warships. What could they possibly coordinate? He was about to find out. Throughout the solar system, thousands of small objects began moving. Mining drones that had been drifting innocently through asteroid fields suddenly activated and began accelerating toward the Draconian fleet. Civilian satellites stopped their normal operations and began broadcasting on military frequencies. Cargo ships that had appeared to be fleeing the battle zone suddenly turned around and began approaching the alien vessels. Dr. Nam's thousands of tiny drones launched from their hiding places, swarming toward the Draconian fleet like angry insects. Each one was too small and primitive to be considered a threat by the aliens' advanced defense systems, but they weren't meant to be threats in the traditional sense. Beginning. Quantum virus transmission, Dr. Yoon announced from her research vessel. All drones are broadcasting on Draconian command frequencies. The small drones reached the outer edge of the Draconian formation and began transmitting their payloads, carefully crafted data streams designed to exploit the quantum communication, networks that connected every alien ship. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Draconian fleet continued its advance, their weapons powering up for another volley at the elusive human targets. Then one by one, warning lights began flashing on Draconian ship bridges throughout the fleet. Admiral, Vexra reported, his voice tight with confusion. We're experiencing system anomalies throughout the fleet. Ships are reporting communication failures, navigation errors, and weapon malfunctions. Admiral Kresh felt the first cold touch of fear. What kind of malfunctions? Unknown, sir. The problems appear to be spreading through our quantum network. It's as if our own systems are turning against us. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Kresh began to wonder if he had made a terrible mistake in underestimating the humans. Admiral Kresh watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet began falling apart around him. Ship after ship reported the same impossible problem. Their own computer systems were turning against them. Engineering reports that the quantum virus is spreading through our entire network, Vexra announced, his voice barely hiding his panic. Every time we try to isolate infected systems, the virus adapts and finds new pathways. How is this possible? Kresh demanded. These humans are primitives. They barely understand basic physics. On the bridge of the Dominus Rex, warning lights flashed red as system after system began shutting down. The ship's artificial intelligence, designed to coordinate thousands of complex operations simultaneously, was overwhelmed by corrupted data streams that seemed to multiply faster than they could be eliminated. Life support fluctuating, reported the ship's engineer. Emergency bulkheads are sealing automatically. Weapon systems are powering down to prevent overload damage. Throughout the Draconian fleet, the same scene played out on ship after ship. The very technology that made them superior to every other species in the galaxy was being turned against them by an enemy they had dismissed as barely intelligent. Captain Boram Shin watched the tactical display aboard the Incheon as Draconian ships began drifting helplessly through space. Their energy shields flickered and died. Their weapon systems went silent. Their perfect formation dissolved into chaos as ships lost the ability to coordinate with each other. It's working, she whispered. It's actually working. Dr. Sun Mi-yoon monitored the virus propagation from her research vessel. The quantum communication network that connected the Draconian fleet had become the perfect delivery system for her carefully crafted digital weapon. Each ship that tried to help another infected ship only spread the virus further through the network. The virus is designed to exploit their dependence on automation, she explained to her team. Their ships are so advanced that they can't function without computer assistance. When the computers fail, the ships become helpless. Dr. Kyung-ho Nam watched his small drones swarm around the disabled Draconian vessels like tiny predators surrounding wounded giants. Each drone continued broadcasting its viral payload, ensuring that any attempt to restart ship systems would immediately result in reinfection. Phase 3 is ready to execute, he reported to command. All Draconian vessels are now within the affected zone. Commander Hwan Young-lim coordinated the final phase of the operation from the Daejeon. Throughout the solar system, human ships that had been hiding for days suddenly revealed themselves. Not just the 50 military vessels the Draconians knew about, but thousands of craft of every size and description. Mining ships emerged from asteroid shadows. Cargo haulers dropped their camouflage and revealed hidden weapons. Research stations activated defense systems that shouldn't have existed. Even passenger liners and tourist shuttles joined the massive fleet now surrounding the helpless Draconian vessels. All units, this is command, Lim announced. Execute Phase 3. Surround and secure all enemy vessels. Prepare for boarding operations. Admiral Kresh felt the deck plates vibrate beneath his feet as the Dominus Rex's massive engines finally gave up and shut down completely. Emergency power kicked in, bathing the bridge in dim red light. Through the viewports, he could see human ships approaching from all directions. This cannot be happening, he muttered. We are the Draconian Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds. We have never been defeated. Admiral, Morthen said quietly. We're receiving a transmission from the humans. Captain Kim's face appeared on the main screen. He was standing on the bridge of the Soul's Pride, the same primitive ship that had brought him to the Galactic Council months earlier. But now, instead of looking small and outmatched, he appeared calm and confident. Admiral Kresh, Kim said politely, I believe you remember me from our meeting at the Galactic Council. You offered us surrender terms then. Now I'm offering them to you. Kresh's yellow eyes blazed with fury. You dare offer terms to us? We are your superiors in every way. Your ships say otherwise, Kim replied. Look around you, Admiral. Your mighty fleet is floating dead in space. Your advanced technology has been turned against you by primitives who barely understand physics. How does that make you feel? Through the viewport, Kresh could see human boarding shuttles approaching his flagship. Dozens of them moving with purpose and coordination that spoke of careful planning and flawless execution. What do you want? He asked through gritted teeth. The same thing we wanted when you first arrived in our system, Kim answered. To be left alone. You and your crews will be provided with life support, medical attention, and safe passage home. The only condition is that you leave human space immediately and never return with hostile intent. Captain Myung-oh appeared on another section of the screen. She wore the uniform of a medical officer and stood in what appeared to be a well-equipped hospital facility. Admiral, she said, we're prepared to treat any injuries your crews may have sustained during the system failures. We've analyzed your species biology from the data Captain Kim collected, and we have medical supplies ready for immediate distribution. Kresh stared at the screen in disbelief. You're offering to help us? After we came here to conquer you? We're offering to let you leave with your lives and dignity intact. President Lee's voice joined the conversation. We don't want to rule over you or destroy your empire. We just want you to understand that humans are not the primitives you thought we were. This is impossible, Kresh whispered. Your ships, your weapons, your technology, it's all inferior to ours. How did you defeat us? Dr. Cho's voice came through the speakers. You made the mistake of thinking that advanced technology automatically means superior tactics. You connected all your systems together for efficiency, but that gave us a single point of failure to exploit. You standardized everything for simplicity, but that meant one solution could affect your entire fleet. Most importantly, you underestimated us because we do things differently. Your greatest strength became your greatest weakness, Kim added, and our greatest weakness, being primitive and unconnected, became our greatest strength. We had to be creative because we didn't have overwhelming force. We had to be unpredictable because we couldn't match your technology. As human boarding parties secured the Draconian ships, something unprecedented began happening. The alien crews, expecting brutal treatment from the primitive species they had come to conquer, instead found themselves offered food, medical attention, and basic comfort. The humans were professional and respectful. They disabled the Draconian weapons and secured their computer systems, but they also provided portable life support units for damaged ships and emergency medical care for injured crew members. I don't understand, Vexra confided to Admiral Kresh as human medics treated a wounded Draconian officer nearby. Why are they helping us? We came here to enslave them. Because, Captain Kim said, having overheard the conversation, we're not like you. We don't conquer species just because we can. We defend ourselves when we have to, but we don't seek to harm others unnecessarily. Over the next several hours, the massive Draconian fleet was systematically secured and prepared for departure. Human engineers worked alongside Draconian technicians to repair essential systems and purge the quantum virus from ship networks. Medical teams treated injured aliens with the same care. They would show their own species, Admiral. Kresh found himself in the strange position of watching his enemies care for his people better than his own empire often did. When a young Draconian officer was seriously injured in a system explosion, human doctors worked for hours to save his life using medical techniques adapted specifically for Draconian physiology. Why? He finally asked Captain Kim during one of their meetings. Why show mercy to those who showed you none? Kim considered the question carefully. Because that's who we are, Admiral. Yes, we can fight when we have to. Yes, we can be clever and ruthless when our survival is at stake. But we're also capable of compassion, even toward our enemies. Your empire will never understand this, Kresh warned. They will see your mercy as weakness. Let them, Kim replied. We've proven we can defend ourselves. Now we're proving that we can do it without becoming monsters in the process. As the repairs neared completion, Admiral Kresh realized that something extraordinary was happening. In less than a day, his invincible fleet would be restored to full functionality and allowed to leave human space unharmed. No ransom would be demanded. No territory would be claimed. No revenge would be taken. The primitive humans were simply going to fix his ships and send him home. For a warrior who had spent his entire life believing that might makes right, it was the most disturbing thing he had ever experienced. The galaxy was about to learn that there was something far more dangerous than superior technology or overwhelming force. There was a species that could defeat you completely, and then show you kindness. Admiral Kresh stood on the bridge of the Dominus Rex, watching his fleet prepare for departure. Around him, human technicians worked alongside his own crew to complete the final system checks. It had been 3 days since the humiliating defeat, and his ships were now fully operational again. The quantum virus had been completely purged from their networks. Damaged systems had been repaired or replaced with human-made components that somehow worked perfectly with Draconian technology. His weapons were functional, his shields were restored, and his engines were ready for the journey home. He could have turned those weapons on the human ships surrounding his fleet. He could have tried to salvage some victory from this disaster. But every time the thought crossed his mind, he remembered the young Draconian officer whose life had been saved by human doctors, or the crew members who had been given food and medical care by the same species they had come to enslave. Captain Kim appeared on the communication screen one final time. "Admiral, your fleet is clear for departure. We've provided you with updated star charts for the journey home and emergency supply caches if you need them along the way." "Captain Kim," Kresh said slowly, "what you've done here, what your species has accomplished, it should not have been possible." "Many things are possible when people work together toward a common goal," Kim replied. "We learned that lesson long before we reached the stars." "My empire will want to know what happened here," Kresh continued. "They will demand answers about how our most powerful fleet was defeated by primitives." "Tell them whatever you think is best," Kim said. "We're not interested in threats or boasts. We just want to be left in peace to develop our civilization as we see fit." Kresh nodded slowly. "And if they don't listen, if they send an even larger fleet?" Kim's expression grew serious. "Then we'll be ready for them too. But Admiral, I hope it doesn't come to that. There's enough room in the galaxy for all of us to coexist without trying to conquer each other." As the communication ended, Kresh looked around at his bridge crew. Fexra, Morthan, and the others were all staring at the displays showing the thousands of human ships surrounding them. Ships that had appeared from nowhere, organized by people they had dismissed as barely intelligent, using technology they had considered primitive. "Set course for home," Kresh ordered. "Maximum speed." "Yes, Admiral," his navigator replied. "What should I log as the reason for our departure?" Kresh thought about that for a long moment. How could he explain that they had been defeated not by superior weapons or overwhelming numbers, but by creativity, cooperation, and an absolute refusal to give up? How could he describe the humiliation of having his advanced technology turned against him by beings who still used chemical rockets to escape their home planet? "Log it as." "Mission parameters changed," he said finally. "The Sol system is no longer considered a target for Imperial expansion." As the Draconian fleet began moving toward the edge of the solar system, something strange happened. Instead of celebrating their departure, the human ships simply faded back into the background of civilian space traffic. The thousands of vessels that had appeared during the battle seemed to vanish as quietly as they had emerged. Mining ships returned to their asteroid fields. Cargo haulers resumed their trade routes. Research stations went back to their scientific missions. The great human war machine that had defeated the mighty Draconian Empire simply dissolved back into the normal activities of a peaceful civilization. Dr. Jamin Cho watched the alien fleet disappear from his sensors and smiled. "Phase 4 complete," he announced to the command center. "All assets have returned to normal operations." President Lee nodded with satisfaction. "Any signs that they'll be back?" "I don't think so," Dr. Cho replied. "Admiral Kresh is a military professional. He understands what happened here, even if he doesn't want to admit it. His empire just discovered that their most advanced fleet can be defeated by clever tactics and superior coordination." "And if they do come back?" Admiral Han asked. "Then we'll be ready," Dr. Sun Mi-yoon said from her workstation. "We've learned a lot about their technology and their weaknesses. Next time, we'll be even better prepared." But next time never came. The Draconian fleet arrived at their home system 2 weeks later, and Admiral Kresh submitted his report to the Imperial High Command. The document was classified at the highest level and sealed in the deepest vaults of the Imperial archives. Officially, the Draconian Empire announced that the human problem has been resolved and that the Sol system was now off-limits to all Imperial forces. No further details were provided and no questions were answered. The other members of the Galactic Council began to notice strange things happening. Trade routes that had been dominated by Draconian ships suddenly became open to other species. The arrogant alien empire that had controlled vast sectors of space for thousands of years became quiet and withdrawn. When asked about their change in behavior, Draconian officials gave vague responses about strategic realignment and new priorities. They stopped expanding into new territories. They stopped making demands of weaker species. Most notably, they stopped talking about the primitive humans they had once planned to conquer. Dr. Insu Kang arrived at the next Galactic Council meeting as Earth's new ambassador. Unlike Captain Kim's first visit, this time he was escorted by a small fleet of human ships that demonstrated impressive technological capabilities. The same aliens who had mocked humanity months earlier now watched with nervous attention as Dr. Kang presented Earth's second application for galactic citizenship. We come not as supplicants, he announced to the assembled council, but as equals seeking membership in the galactic community. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our perspective to enrich all our civilizations. The Vorthon energy beings flickered uncertainly. The Zephyrian insectoids clicked their mandibles in what might have been respect rather than amusement. Even the proud Altarians leaned forward in their seats to listen carefully to every word. Only the Draconian representative remained silent, staring at the floor and refusing to meet anyone's eyes. The vote for Earth's membership was unanimous. In the years that followed, stories began to spread throughout the galaxy about the silent victory, the day a primitive species made an entire fleet of advanced warships vanish without a trace. Military academies studied the battle as an example of how technological superiority meant nothing without tactical wisdom and strategic thinking. Young officers in dozens of different species learned about the humans who turned their entire civilization into a weapon system, then dismantled it just as quickly when the threat was over. They studied the quantum virus that turned advanced AI systems against themselves. They marveled at the coordination that allowed thousands of civilian vessels to act as a single military force. Most importantly, they learned that the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't superior technology or overwhelming firepower. It was a species that refused to accept defeat and had the creativity to find solutions that no one else had ever imagined. The Draconian Empire still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Admiral Kresh remained in service, but he was never again given command of an offensive operation. When younger officers asked him about the legendary human battle, he would only say, "Never underestimate a species that can turn their weakness into strength." As for the humans, they integrated peacefully into galactic civilization. They shared their technology freely, formed alliances based on mutual respect rather than dominance, and continued to surprise everyone with their unconventional solutions to seemingly impossible problems. But in the deepest archives of Earth's military headquarters, carefully preserved recordings of the battle were kept as a reminder. Humanity had proven they could defend themselves when necessary, using nothing more than ingenuity, determination, and the absolute refusal to surrender. The galaxy had learned that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be. They were something far more dangerous and far more valuable, a civilization that could adapt to any challenge and find a way to win against impossible odds. And if anyone ever forgot that lesson, the story of the Draconian fleet that vanished without a sound would remind them that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the universe is the determination to survive.